Thank you for tuning in to LA Talk Live, reality radio handcrafted for your listening pleasure. This is LA Talk Live, and we're more than just talk. Stay tuned.
I never knew there was a place to go where my spirit's thirst is quenched. Hold on.
Happy Sunday, everyone. Welcome to Sisters at the Well Radio, a conversation with women about women. Happy Sunday from Los Angeles, California,
Happy Sunday.
where God kissed us today with weather.
Grateful Sunday.
Oh, God.
It is Grateful Sunday, you said?
Grateful Sunday.
I love it. It's Grateful
Yes.
Sunday. The weather is absolutely superb. We're happy that you're joining us today right here at the LA Talk Live studio, our new home. We're Sisters at the Well. We get together once a week and we talk about issues that we feel are important to the Black women's community. But that means we want everybody to listen because we want you to know what's important, what's on our minds, what's on our hearts. You know, it's one world, right? And Black women have had a very significant role in this world. And today I'm so pleased that we're talking about specifically the role that Black women played in the civil rights movement. We just celebrated the 50th anniversary of the March in Washington. Yay!
Yay.
What a celebration that was last week.
Beautiful. MOW.
Yeah,
Wow.
MOW. So funny when I first saw it. I didn't know what it meant. I was like, what's MOW? March on Washington.
Yeah. Hashtag.
I know. So it was a lot of fun. We learned a lot. It was so moving. And we have an hour planned for you where we're going to recap a lot of what happened last week. But most importantly, we're going to focus on where were the sisters? You know, the role we played 50 years ago, the role we play now, very significant, sometimes always in the background, but steady. Sisters have always been steady holding it. So we want to get started. I'm so happy that my in-studio guest, Melina Lawrence, who is actually going to be one of the co-hosts here, one of the rotating hosts. So when
Thank
I'm
you.
not here, you'll see this face. Thank you, Melina. She's a
Oh,
TV
thank you.
personality and a journalist and social activist, and we're just happy that she's joining us. We love to have young sisters on board.
Happy to be here. Gotta come to the well.
Yeah, you got to come to the
Gotta
well.
come to the
Yeah,
well.
yeah, I love it. I love it. I love it. And then a really sister soldier friend, Glenda Gill, who's here today, who has been holding it down for a long time.
Very long.
You know, and we're going to talk a lot about some of the work that Glenda's doing right here in the community, but also nationwide. You know, she specializes in non-traditional employment for women, particularly in the automotive industry.
Correct.
So we're going to talk to Miss Glenda Gill today, an opinion leader and activist. Glenda, welcome.
Thank you.
Happy
I'm
to
glad
have
to
you.
be here.
Great. So our topic again today is the significant role that African American women, I should say Black women, because we had a lot of Caribbean women and other women from around the world, but the significant role we played throughout history around the civil rights movement 50 years ago and today. And so we're going to look through that. We're going to start off with hearing a little clip from the daughter of Dr. Martin Luther King, Bernice King. Here's a little clip from her last week.
So in many respects, it all begins as the life begins in a woman's womb. And so we incubate, we nurture, and we birth out things. And we can never ever forget that, and we must always ensure that the story is told and the record is accurate. Because anytime we hear about the movement, for the most part, in the last few years back, it was predominantly about the male leadership, and we certainly applaud all of the wonderful leadership of all of the men who were at the head of this struggle. But going forward, we must continue to tell our stories and make sure that the story is very well balanced, because I just want to say for the record, I don't necessarily believe in the statement, behind every man is a good woman. I affirm the statement that beside every man is an even greater woman. And I say even greater woman because we oftentimes have to make the greatest sacrifice, especially those who are wives and mothers. Because not only do we have to support our children, but we have to support and encourage and motivate the men, because they get to points in which they become discouraged and want to give up. But that instinct within all of us, which is that nurturing instinct, helps to nurture them back to the place where they understand that we cannot give up. You can rest if you must, but you must never quit. And so it is that energy, it is that tenacity of women that has been
So that was a little bit of the powerful Bernice King last week. There were activities all over the nation, but in Washington, D.C., we all three of us had an opportunity to be there. And this speech, a little piece of that you heard, was from the Black Women's Round Table, where they pulled together a dialogue with women who had been a part of the struggle 50 years ago. And that was, I mean, I don't think there was a dry eye in the room. Melina was supposed to be taping, and
tweeting.
I looked over and I saw you, and I thought, wow, is she getting any of this down?
Yeah.
Tell us about that moment.
I took a lot of notes. I took all the messaging notes. However, what happened? We were at a round table. We were at our own round table with all the media and the reporters. And as we were getting our assignment, the assignment didn't come directly to the table yet. And we all got, like, literally, even the messenger got caught up in the storytelling on their way. So we were like tweeting every now and then, listening to the stories untold and shared by all these fabulous women who happened to be at the march on Washington in 1963, and just hear so many powerful impacts and influences and responsibilities and roles, but the stories untold couldn't be captured. You could tell it just couldn't be. It was captured like in moments and spurts, but it could not be like encapsulated in that however many hours C-SPAN gave us.
Yeah.
You know, but it warmed my heart. I had chills, I had tears. I was fascinated, and I was so alive. I felt like the spirit of our ancestors. It was so alive in that room. Women from everywhere.
Yeah. You know, I haven't seen it on C-SPAN, so we need to take a look at that.
Yeah.
But one particular story, and then I'm going to go to Glenda and talk about your memory from that weekend. But one particular story was a story about the sister who was 15 years old, wanted to go to the march, and her parents said no. Her uncle, she lived with her uncle and aunt. She had moved to live with them so that she can get better schooling. Mm-hmm. And she wanted to go to the march, and they said no because they feared safety, you know. She then said, well, I'm spending the night with a girlfriend.
Right.
And the two of these 15-year-olds left, I think it was Philadelphia.
Yes.
Boarded a bus, went
Greyhound.
to D.C., got on Greyhound, went to D.C., went to the march. Who does that at 15 years old? Get on the bus. She said she got back and she got the whooping of her lifetime. But she said, but her uncle was so proud of her for having the courage and the consciousness.
And the drive.
And the drive to figure it out. And then when they got there, of course, the mothers rallied around these two 15-year-olds and made sure that they were safe.
Yeah.
But that was a moment for me.
That
when
was
I
a
thought,
moment for me too.
Yeah, I don't know if at 15 years old I would have had even the courage, first of all, or the understanding to know that was a place that you had to be in history.
Yes.
So, Glenda, what do you think? What happened for you last week?
Well, the first thing is I must applaud all the women that came together on the telephone before we got to the march in Washington to have a discussion and a conference call about the women's place.
Right.
And I thought that was very important because we are the planners. We set the course, even though we do stand sometimes in the background and the men are in the foreground, in the front. But we are the planners.
That's right.
We make it happen because the attention to detail. For me,
and that was, by the way, that was Melanie Campbell,
right.
the Black Women's Roundtable's leadership.
Correct.
I mean, it was. I don't know how many women's organizations, diverse groups, and young, intergenerational. Melanie Campbell is an amazing organizer, and we really do applaud the work that Black Women Roundtable does.
Absolutely, because she set the course and the agenda, and everybody was able to weigh in on their piece.
Yeah.
And then even more so that one of the women on the phone, remember, she brought to the table about we've got to discuss the men because we've got to support the men because they're under attack.
That's right.
And so it was, it was a conversation of inclusiveness, one of everybody. For me, when I got to Washington, of course, I flew from my hometown, which is Detroit.
Yeah.
And I flew on the plane with Congressman Conyers. So that just set
off. Wow. Okay.
And had a chance to, take pictures with him, but knew him anyway. But, he has such a pivotal role in all of this, being the chair of the Judiciary Committee. And so that just set it off for me. And then the second piece that really set it off for me, there was a young woman who went, I think she was about 12 years old, to the March on Washington. And her picture was captured and was the picture that was used around the country. And she was going with her granddaughters. And she never knew her picture was used in the paper until 35 years later. Her cousin said, I think this is you.
This looks like
at the
you.
March on Washington, right. So she was there with her granddaughters. There were just so many stories. But what stood out for me is the fervor that people still have, and especially the elders. They're still there on the front lines, fighting for us and making sure that they cannot leave here until they see equality for us. And I think what was real poignant for me was to see the generations of people, to see
absolutely.
that grandparents were bringing their children. And it was across all races too. And there were people everywhere. People were asking, well, what were the numbers like? And I said there was easily 250,000 people. I don't know what numbers were reported, but there were people everywhere all across the D.C. They were in front of the monument.
Yeah.
They were over by the King Center. Of course, before we would sit out in the sun all day.
Yeah.
And endure the heat. Now we like shade and air conditioning, but it was.
But they had it. They were showing it all over in venues all over Washington, D.C. as well. So people could go in, and I know that some of the young people had organized at some of the local restaurants and on campuses, organized viewing. I don't know what they called it, watch parties.
They had watch parties all over. I know for me, I went like immediately afterwards as well. I went to Bus Boys and Poets. I went to both of them off of U Street and K Street.
Love that
K
place.
and 5th. I do too. And it was a continuum of conversation, actions, activism, conversations, meeting people from all over again, and just bumping into people speaking different languages. They even had buses. People flew in from Africa.
Yeah.
And because of the South African movement, civil rights movement, it was just, I was inundated with blessings of conversation and actions, and what do we do next. And the lady, there was a elder who spoke in the session 1 at the Black Women's Roundtable. I thought she was so fiery. I wrote her name down somewhere, but she gave me also, all the young sisters at the media table, they were like, yeah, we all were like, yeah. She said, I might be 63. She said, but age.
See, that's not old for us.
Yeah, she was like, she's like, I think in 1963. She's like, in 1963, I may have been a little young thing. She said, but as she grew older, when people started asking her age, her fire is so, like, her energy was so just great, dynamic. She said, it's not your chronological age, young people. She said,
oh, that's right. It's your functional age.
Functional age.
Yeah, I remember that.
Oh, yeah. She's like, so don't ever don't ever let age be a factor. Looking for retirement, looking for different things. Always stay active. Always do something and have reason and purpose for fighting for justice.
Yeah.
And then she's like, I'm still fighting for justice because she don't even want to hang around elders and old people or senior citizens because she's like it'll drag you down.
She said the fire is out.
Yes.
We're not trying to put our fire out.
Right.
Well, there were a lot of panels that weekend. There was a voting rights panel that occurred. There was a kickoff on that Friday night that the Urban League and the NAACP,
Google had
Rainbow
a party.
Push had.
Yeah, here's the I'm going to give it to you, Melina, and maybe you can find the woman who you're speaking about so we can name her. But here's the program from that day. But you're right. There was about 8 days of activities.
There were 8 days of activities, and there was a panel around knowledge for young people, and I didn't get a chance to attend, but I heard that it was just exceptional. And it was, what do we do next? Where do we go next? We almost feel, when I got to Washington, D.C., my colleague said to me, Janice Mathis, she said, I feel like we're in a new civil war and we don't really recognize it.
Shay, I
that
agree.
we are dealing with the same things that we did before, but it's dressed up in new clothes.
Absolutely.
The taking away your voting rights, taking away all the things, all the gains that we've made throughout the years are being subtracted. They're going backwards as we're trying to move forward. I mean, unemployment, just on and on in our communities. Our communities are under siege. And when she brought that up, and I listened to a lot of the discussion over the weekend and how people are feeling and what they're experiencing, not just feeling, but experiencing, it's like we're in the same boat again. We're fighting for equal justice. We're fighting for people to not be incarcerated. It's like the new Jim Crow.
Well, everything for it feels like everything for us is disproportionate. Our numbers are always larger, but I don't want us to be out of balance with the recognition of the accomplishments, because it would be a disservice,
of course,
right, to those who have really paid tremendous prices, including their lives, for the gains. And those, like the women we stand on their shoulders, I always have to raise up this shero of mine, Dorothy Height, right?
Yes.
We have to, we just have to stop and give her a little, woo! We just have to always just big up to our shero, because Dr. Height, among other women, and of course Dr. Height was there, and you talk about the planners, the women being the planners. She was always there and was always an opinion shaper and opinion leader, but willing, no job was too small, willing to at sometimes appear invisible. But there was no way a Dorothy Height would be in the room and you not feel her energy and her presence.
Of course.
So without words, the women, and that's what we're talking about today, without words, the women were present, and their presence were significant, and they moved the agenda.
And they had a very pivotal role up on that stage.
Extremely. Extremely.
They were everywhere.
Yeah,
I mean, they were running the show. As you could see.
Well, they made it, there was a vote taken that Dr. King would be the speaker that day.
Correct.
It wasn't like it was an automatic he would be the speaker that day. We're going to take a little bit of break, but when we listen to Bernice King, we also, I'm hoping that you saw on your screen, those of you who are listening to us on the World Wide Web and iTunes and Ustream, thank you for listening, and please stay with us. We got a lot more conversation. I'm hoping that you were able to see Bernice King as she was planting a kiss on her father's monument, and that photo to me just really told a story. She is such an embodiment of the spirit of Dr. King and what he stands for. I mean, all of the children are, I'm sure, full of the legacy of the father, but it just something about the words coming out of her mouth. And so that moment, I'm hoping you got a chance to see that photograph. We're going to take a little break. We'll come back and we'll talk a lot more about the role that black women played 50 years ago, and more importantly, the role that we play today as we move forward with our civil rights and protecting our civil liberties. So here's a break.
There used to be a graying tower alone on the sea. You became the light on the dark side of me. Love remains a drug that's the high and not the pill. But did you know that when it snows, my eyes become large and the light that you shine can't be seen? A man can tell you so much he can say. You remain my power, my pleasure, my pain, baby. To me, you're like a grown addiction that I can't deny. Won't you tell me, is that healthy, baby? But did you know that when it snows, my eyes become large and the light that you shine can't be seen? Baby, I compare you to a kiss from a rose on the grave. Ooh, the more I get of you, the stranger it feels, yeah. Now that your rose is in bloom, a light hits the gloom on the grave. There is so much a man can tell you, so much he can say. You remain my power, my pleasure, my pain. To me, you're like a grown
Okay, so we're back. Sisters at the Well Radio, a conversation with women about women. And I'm Barbara Perkins. I'm your lead host. And I'm in the studio with Glenda Gill, who is an opinion leader and activist nationwide. And I'm here with Melina Lawrence, who is a co-host at Sisters at the Well Radio. She is a producer and TV personality and journalist and activist and smart one and mentee and leader and all of that good stuff. We're just happy to have you today.
I'm happy too.
You're sandwiched between
I know
the two of us here.
That was telepathy, because I was just saying I'm just so excited to be in the midst of two strong, powerful women in our community and on this planet. It's really a blessing, y'all, to just like be right here.
I love it.
We love having
energy.
you. We love having you.
Thank you.
You could take over.
Yeah, she will be. So we were talking about the role that, black women played in the civil rights movement and the significant role that we play today as we move our communities forward. We just celebrated this 50th anniversary of the March in Washington. It was an amazing week of activity. But now here we are.
Yes.
What's in front of us today? Where do we go? What's critical? What should we be thinking? How do people get plugged in? Glenda, you want to start?
Well, I think some of the issues that are on the table or things that we're going to be working on is our health issues, how they're impacting our community. Human trafficking is becoming a big deal for young women that we've got to pay more attention to. social justice. I mean, our kids are being criminalized at a very young age, and not only criminalized from the penal system, they are also being penalized about their self-esteem. Just the story just the other day about the little young girl with cornrows in her hair brought tears to my eyes, that she was going to be sent home because her hair was unacceptable. Not good.
Yeah.
I mean,
At
we're
all.
trying to grow up women to
Who
be
would say
confident,
that her cornrows are not acceptable?
her twist, right?
Her
Yeah, it was a
twist.
big deal. It's a really big deal.
You know, in 1978, I was hired by American Airlines after a big lawsuit that the airlines, commercial airlines, weren't hiring a lot of African American women and men for that matter. But when I was hired, I had natural hair. And we could not wear braids. You know, my hair, in fact, looked a little bit like yours, Melina.
Wasn't it like Walt Disney?
It was big. It was big, big, big hair. And, you know, I remember really thinking hard about taking the job because I did not want to change my hair, which was so much a part of who
Correct.
I am.
Yeah.
And one of the sheroes of that time, I don't know if you remember, Glenda, Queen Mother Moore.
Oh, I do.
Queen Mother Moore had visited our college. I was in Boston. And I was saying to her, I'm not going to take this job as a flight attendant, stewardess we were called back then, because I'm not changing my hair. I'm not going to change my hair. That's a part of who I am. And of course, she sat me down, and in her wisdom, she was very much like Dr. Hyde in terms of how patient they were. But she said, you are going to be a change agent, but you can't make many changes if you're on the outside.
Right.
You need to get inside. And if it's your hair that you're concerned about, then you get in and you work within the establishment for those women who would want their hair to be a certain way. And you work within the establishment to help that happen. And so, you know, I think here we are today talking about hair. And of course, years later, flight attendants can wear their hair braided,
Whatever. Right.
you know. So I can't even imagine today that someone would be sending a youngster home because her hair is cornrowed or twist.
It's
And so
still an
she's
issue.
Yeah.
Traumatized. I
Yeah.
mean, she's traumatized. She's only 5 years old.
Yeah, how dare you?
Really? How
You
dare
know,
you?
how dare you?
I mean, and then we've got to deal with the voting rights.
Yes.
You know, our rights around this country, and then also the whole pay issue, our employment
Equal
issue.
pay.
Equal
Equal
pay.
pay, right?
Yeah.
So we've got work to do. I am encouraged.
Yeah.
You know,
The immigration
the immigration issue.
issue
yes,
is huge
yes.
for us. We're
Major.
talking about black and brown people
Right.
who have contributed to the country,
Of
who
course.
continues to contribute to the country in a meaningful way, you know. And so, yeah, there's a lot of work on our plates. But what are we doing, the women?
The women are continuing to communicate, support one another. I think for us, when you see things that are not with the heart intent of passion of supporting and reinforcing women, we have to address that.
Yeah.
So that we can stay on one accord to get the work done. We have so many distractions because things are coming at us left and right about how we're supposed to look, what we're supposed to do, what we're not supposed to do. But in our hearts, we know who we are and what we're to do. And if someone is tearing down someone else, I think as a woman, you just step up and say, you know, we're not going to deal with that like that. Let's
Right.
deal with it with love. Bring some love to the conversation so we can have the right types of conversations that we need to have. But what I want us to know, though, is that we are leaders. And we kind of minimize that we're leaders because it depends on what
Well, we're
generation
taught,
that you're in.
you know, black girls, we're taught are one of the cultural norms that we have to overcome is this idea that you have to be a good girl,
Yes.
you know? And there's this notion that, you know, being good means to minimize who you are.
Yeah.
And that's not so.
No, because you're not stepping into your
Yeah.
authenticity about
Yeah.
who God intended for you to be.
Yeah.
But I think
And-
that's a great lesson. I know for within our generation and just growing up, even myself included, we were always, I was taught even in different jobs and arenas, from lobbying to being an activist, and enter quietly, then make your bang. or you know what I mean, kind of like enter and walk.
Unassuming.
Yeah, be just lay back and listen. And listening is great. I mean, we get a lot done by listening, but when it's time to act and we got to pull out everything we have to pull out just to get the job done, the way mindsets shift for women and young women, I think sometimes we think too much, and we may think ourselves out of the momentum to getting things done because of that, the point you just made, making sure that we actually don't play small, you know,
Right.
and don't dim our light. Like, that's something that I know for self, I always have to remind myself, because when you walk into a boardroom or a male dominant atmosphere at times, or an atmosphere where women don't play in a space where they're
They don't want to
yeah,
share.
non-traditional. Right. It's like we don't have to. This is not a cat fight. This is a unit, and we have to move as a unit and as one. So, and that was another thing I learned at the round table, or just the beauty of how the women came together to move forward. How they sacrificed, and I think that a lot of conversations during that time, during the March on Washington, the anniversary, was what is our means of being sacrificial today, and how do we make sure that our sacrifices are going to pay off and deliver the fruits of our labor that'll help the decrease the prison population for our young boys and our young girls, our black women, our black men, and increase job security and and increase political power in our communities and things of that sort. So it's a new way of sacrificing, because our world is moving at Google rate, real fast speed, and Google gets you a lot of information, but I don't think Google can save our community.
And I think there has to be balance.
Yes,
This is what I would say
yes.
to young people. There has to be balance. I mean, discipline is required no matter how fast the world moves.
Yes.
Discipline is required. And so you have to scroll down, meaning you have to be prepared. You can't just take the sound bite and run with the sound bite. So what the Dorothy Heights of the world taught us is that the Rosa Parks of the world, just in the spirit of how she remained in her seat and why she chose that day to remain in her seat. This woman had been in the struggle for many years prior to that. And the patience and the discipline so that you're ready when your moment comes. And the other thing that I try to tell young people, and even women my age as we're moving into the leadership space, we cannot get distracted by whose name is on the marquee.
Correct.
Right.
This is one of the major hurdles when we're talking about fighting for our rights. One of the ways that we get tripped up is we begin to say, who's the leader? Well, we're all leaders. And we all have what Dr. Height has done around building the National Council of Negro Women, an organization, and she really picked up Mary McLeod Bethune's dream, the mantle, and took that leg and ran with it, her leg. We have to find our leg.
Yes.
And what Dr. Bethune said is that African American women have to have a strong presence. She said in the nation's capital, but what we're saying is in the world, because no geography can separate my heart from yours.
And you know what, Barbara?
There's one mind is what I'm trying to say. Coming out of the consciousness of God, there is
Absolutely.
one mind. So no matter what part, I'm sorry, Glenda, no matter what part of the world, the universe you're in, our hearts are the same. And the perfect example of that is in 1995, I went to the Women's World Conference in China. And out of that, I went with the Black Women's Lawyers group. Dr. Barbara Onwine is the leader of that group now in DC. And God, it's almost 20 years now, right? One of the things we came together to do, 125 Black women. I happened to be with Dr. Height, a newbie just trying to figure it all out. But what a place to be. I was at the round table. But what I noticed was everyone put their personal agendas aside easily and said, when we leave China, we want to walk away with a document that we can all live with, that represents everyone, regardless of your religious beliefs, regardless of your language. We're talking women in the world, global document. That, can you imagine? Sometimes we get caught up in our own little cities, our own little town, our church, and we can't plan something in the church because we're distracted by some infighting thing. Whose name is going to be at the top, and who's the chair, and who's the leader, as opposed to really being focused on what is the job at hand. What is the mission?
One
Linda?
of the things, Barbara, that I loved about Dr. Height and Rosa Parks, because I had the chance to meet and be in Rosa Parks's presence. Everything they did it with elegance and grace.
Everything.
They didn't have to be loud. They didn't have to overexert themselves about, I'm in the room. You just knew their mere presence that they were in the room, and you just had respect for their presence and what they brought to the table. And everybody has a piece to bring. And when you have service in your heart, even though somebody else will get recognition for it, who knows that you serve? You know that you serve.
That's right.
And God knows that you served. And something was said this morning about the pastor spoke this morning, and it was about you can't hurry it up. It's in your own place. It's in its own place, and it will happen in a perfect time. And if you've got to believe that and know that in order to operate as a collective. And most women are for the greater good of the community, because I liken it to bearing children, or having the ability to bear children, even if you don't biologically have children. We want to nurture, we want to love, we want it to be great for everybody. We want everybody to be happy, fed, have a roof over their house.
Right.
Over their heads. And so if you come from that kind of space, you really can work as a collaborative and work good together. And for us to save our community,
Yes.
we're going to have to work together. This is not, the 80s and the 90s brought this whole capitalism me agenda.
Yeah. And we read it and we thought it was our story.
Right, and it's not. This is
It's
really
not.
a we agenda.
Yeah.
Because if the me is going to be destroyed, because the ego always tries to outlive everything and take
Yeah.
over everything, and it never
Yeah.
makes it. So
Yeah.
it's a we agenda, and until we realize it's a we agenda, and everybody's going to get something out of it. And so I think women know they work together as we have some things, but I think we're growing, and I think we will continue to grow. And I think as we have mature women in the circle having the discussion, they can recognize all the egos and the
Yeah.
issues and address them
Yeah.
very quickly, so that they can be minimized, so we can get to the work at hand at the table. And I am so loving that we get to work with some dynamic young women like Melina.
Yeah.
And, we've got April. We've got a host of young women that we're working
Yeah.
with throughout the country, and they want to be involved.
We have to give
we
it to
do.
them, though.
Right.
It's not enough.
No,
This is what I said at the march.
Yeah,
I said, it's
that was
not
the
enough that we invite them in the room.
We have to give it to
We
them.
have to turn it over to them,
Yes.
and allow them to exercise their gifts.
And I'm so happy
And
to
their
turn it over
talent.
to them, because I am like, I'm still interested, but I'm a little tired.
And we ready
And
because
they're-
we
and
here.
they're capable.
We're so remember the sister. Oh my God, I forget her name. But she was a young sister on the second round table. To her point,
Is it Tamika? She was one of the leaders.
Yeah,
Tamika
Tamika
Mallory.
was long.
She was
Tamika
one of
Man.
the. She's the leader. She
From
is.
National Action Network.
Yes,
she is.
Tamika from the national.
uh-huh.
You
Yes,
should know.
yes,
She
yes.
is not just.
She
I mean,
represents
this
the
young
organization.
sister
Yes.
is representing Reverend Al Sharpton's organization, national organization.
And she spoke
And
at the
she's
opening
leading
for
it.
the mall, on the mall of the 50th anniversary.
Tamika,
Absolutely.
that was
Yes.
her name.
And she didn't just start. So
Mhm.
this is the perfect
She grew
example
up in the
of
movement.
growing up in the movement and being patient and scrolling down
And somebody
and
recognized your
being
talent.
prepared.
Yes. I think that
You know?
what she said, I wanted to hear her speak more, because she's when she spoke, though, timing, when she spoke, she said what she had to say, and it was done. She's just like, we're here, we're not going anywhere, we don't need elders, we don't even need y'all to hand us anything, we're ready, we're willing. And then the elder that was head of the A. Philip Randolph Foundation, she spoke up and said, you know what, baby, let's just get out of their way. Let's get out of the young people's way and let them have it.
Yeah.
And there was countless reasons as to why that we talked about it, but I think it just solidified the energy in the room and the vibes that surrounded, all over the planet, is that young people are taking steps to be in control, whether they have guidance or guidance is on the way to them. They're in a place to where, again, they may not be able, and we may not be able to always articulate it, but the action present and the intent behind change right now.
Well, showing up is the first step.
Exactly.
But
yes.
you show up, but you also must be prepared. There's no substitute for preparation.
And you show
have
up
to
with
be
a
ready
heart to serve.
Yes.
And so we want the confidence and the courage and you to show up. We want that for young people. We don't want you to just step up and say, now, this was said in church this morning too. Oh, I'm here, so reward me. Give me the big chair because I showed up. So give me the big chair.
Right.
We want you to show up, but we want you to be prepared, and we want that representation because we don't get a lot of second chances at doing this. So what was different between 2 generations ago and now is that the mentoring was consistent and it was seamless. And so you brought someone along and you knew, you watched the movie The Butler.
The Butler. Oh, yes.
Exactly.
And you knew you had to wait. And, you wait your turn and you were being patient.
And you were learning along the way.
And they were being trained.
Because you were getting all the knowledge, everything that you needed to be prepared, to be prepared for that role.
Yes.
Remember when he took the role and the gentleman asked him, his mentor asked him something about, do you know how to do such and such? And he started reciting everything. He knew more than the mentor knew because he was in class. No one saw him getting that lesson. You didn't see where he was studying, when he was reading. So we're telling young people, we want you to step up to the plate. We want you to have this turn. But we also want you to be ready. We want you to study. We want you to read. We want to meet you where you are. And then we want to help you.
Because really our role, I work with a lot of people in the automotive industry, and a lot of people are aging out. They're retiring. They're leaving. And I was describing to someone, I said, I need to know all the young people. And they said, why? I said, because they need to know the history.
Yeah.
Because when you sit at the table and you start sharing with them things that happened before that will have some impact on what they're doing and moving forward. So they need to know so they don't step into those minefields.
That's right.
And and I said, as we age out, and when I say age out, I'm just saying aging out of a work industry.
Yeah,
That's
I'm
all.
aging out, but I'm going to the beach.
Right.
I'm real clear.
I'm on the journey.
I'm not checking out. This is an intention.
The advisory board. The advisory board.
I say
they have a golden advisory board.
Call me, Melina. Let me know what you're doing.
I said I work hard, but I play harder. I'm getting more to the play harder role.
Yeah.
But I want to know the young people. I want them to have the knowledge they need to succeed. And as you said, they don't get a second chance. And so I want to know who they are because, I need to make a call and say, hey,
right,
we need this.
Right.
Do you know about this?
And then we
I
also
need you engaged over here.
Yeah, and young
How about
people
come
have
to
to
this?
be willing to accept it.
Right.
I have, they'll probably not like this, but I have a daughter who's 26 and a son 23. And I remember my daughter saying, I don't want you to help me. I don't want you to call anybody for me. Really? Why do you think I'm doing all of this if I can't help you at home?
What's the point?
You mean you really want to struggle?
My son the same way. And I said to him, I can do what I need to do, but I might have to call in a favor for you.
Yeah.
So he told me, I don't need your help. I said, okay.
It may be a little cultural too sometimes.
No, he ended up saying one day,
call.
I need your help.
Make that call. Make that call. Yeah, make that call.
I'm not saying that's what we're here for. We've done all of this. We know we can go get what we need, but we save up the favors for the next generation.
For the next generation.
And so when we have to pull on that favor, It's for you.
Mhm.
Because I
Yeah.
can get what I need to get from me.
But
Yeah.
y'all know that too. You're
Yeah.
like, y'all just lay back and watch, and you're like, okay, you ready now? Okay, look, this is what you got to get, and I'm gonna make that call. And we're like, okay, humble.
We just want you to be receptive. So speaking of call, we may have a caller, so I want to give out the number if you want to call. It's 323 area code 247-7443. Again, the call-in number is 323-247-7443. And this is Sisters at the Well Radio, a conversation with women about women. We're going to take a little short break, but if you'd like to call or Facebook us, please do so, and we'll be right back in about 2 minutes.
He loves with sweetness and sincerity, while she may only pretend. He caresses her hair, thanks to himself. Such a lovely face, gives his entire self, shares his secrets, but it's all in vain. His love for her drowns him in a sea of denial. The fear of being alone, will it keep her there? He loves with sweetness and sincerity, while she may only pretend. He loves with sweetness and sincerity, while she may only pretend. The morning comes, he reaches out to feel her warm.
So we're back, Sisters at the Well, a conversation with women about women. And we left before we went on the break. We were talking about, just transitioning to the young generation, the new generation, and really supporting them in taking over the leadership because, it's your world. We want to make sure that we leave it in a way that you could pick it up and take the next leg and do it. I'm proud of you. I'm also going to give a shout out to Miss Sabrina, who's in the studio. You can't see her, but Sabrina Johnson, who is the associate producer for this show and who does a really good job pulling it all together, and an amazing dancer, and we love her too. And so we want to give her a shout out, and all the other young sisters across, the nation that are doing this work. We are just really pleased to have you. I think we might have a caller, so why don't we do that, and then we'll come back and finish our conversation. Hello, caller.
Hi, how are you? This is Diane calling.
Hi, Diane.
Hi,
This
Diane.
is Barbara. How are you?
I'm great. I would just want to say you're having such a wonderful show.
Well, thank you. Thank you. Anything you want to add to the conversation?
No, I think it's just so interesting, the dynamics between all the guests. It's just a wonderful show to watch, and I definitely would tell all my friends about it.
Well, thank you. This is Sisters at the Well Radio right here at LA Talk Live. We're happy that you called in. If you'd like to call, the number again is 323-247-7443. And today we're talking about the role that black women play in our leadership, in our civil rights, and in the current issues, that's facing us today. And Glenda, let's start, let's pick it up and talk about what you think, what's a priority issue for you? Where are you specifically? Because I know there's so many things to work on, but is there one particular thing that you're most interested in?
Our role at the table.
When you say the table, what
Well,
do you
I
mean?
say from an economic perspective, I primarily in the role that I serve in, I work with Rainbow Push Coalition,
Mm-hmm.
and I advocate from a diversity perspective on roles of women and people of color in corporate America. In different areas, as you know, for me, it's automotive is my focus.
Yeah.
And so I would say equality and justice is probably the strongest points for me. I think that we have freedom, but I don't think that we're equal. And I don't think that we're equal in the veins of economic justice. I don't think we're equal in the veins of legal justice.
Yeah.
I think those things have still to overcome. And I think when we get to the table, we are somewhat minimized about our ability, and our ability is great. And so that is why we always want to show up twice as good, doing even more. And for me, that is what I spend my life being passionate about. I deserve a seat at the table. I don't take any backseat about it. This morning I went to the farmer's market and I was a little strong with this guy. And I said, I don't see you showing up. And, you know, I said to him, hi, how are you? And he said, good. I said, I don't see you showing up. Oh, I have to get back to you on that. I said, I know you're not showing up, and that's going to be a mistake.
Ooh.
And then I had to, on my way to the car, I said, you weren't your feminine self this morning, you know. But I've done this for a long time, and I think you get more comfortable. And I don't want to say I get more jaded, but I get more comfortable about being able to speak my mind about what's showing up and what's not showing up. And I don't think that we should allow people to discount us. We have as much right to be here as anybody else. Mm-hmm. And we have the ability to lead, even with the person that I work with. You know, I've taken a leadership role. I used to be very much in the background, and I think I was a little intimidated and uncomfortable. However,
Meaning Reverend Jackson?
Meaning Reverend Jackson.
Okay.
However, I have learned so much from him. He's not a perfect man, but he has a perfect vision for us. Mm-hmm. And I think, and the women in the organization are the leaders of that organization. He is the iconic figure. However, the women in the organization, they step it up and they do everything. And so I've been so blessed to be able to be in that presence, because that was not what I had in mind for me at all.
Yeah.
Only God had that in store for me. I never saw myself there. And it has been a tremendous role, but one I feel very passionate about. I feel so passionate about civil rights and women's rights. I laughed because at the March on Washington, there were a bunch of men, and they had panels, and they had big signs, and they had microphones, and they were talking about women's reproductive rights.
Okay.
And we were walking, and I said, there's not one woman standing over there talking about her body. It's 5 men. Can any of them have children? No. Yeah. So, women have got to be in all the conversations that really engage them, and they really have to take a leadership role in that.
Yeah, and I think we have to teach. But I do believe we started out saying we have to teach from a place of knowing, but also a place of love.
Of course.
Because we have to teach so that people can hear you. And sometimes, including myself, it's a communication style. I know I have a style of I'm strong, I'm confident. And at times, if I feel like I'm not being heard, I will push really hard, and you will feel it. But I think
yes, Barbara, yes, just say yes.
Speaking truth to power.
and we need to know how to do that, but we also need to know how to really temper our energy. Mm-hmm. And as Iyanla Vanzant would say, watch your tongue.
Correct.
Yeah.
Watch your tongue and make sure that there's love in there, so that even if my words are hard or appear harsh, there's never a mistake about whether or not I care about you.
Because that's not your intent to
and
say
I love
that.
you.
Right.
And intent will always come through.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Even if it takes a moment, it will always come through.
But Barbara, that's why I say we have to communicate, because I find especially in this era of technology, with social media and Twitter and texting, sometimes you can see something and it's just didn't come
misinterpret.
through right. And I've had
Right.
that happen a lot of times where I started writing a message and said, no, let me pick up the phone
Pick
and
up the
call
phone.
because the message, the way that I'm writing this, even though that's not my intent, it might be interpreted another way. And if I already know that, I just said, let me pick up the phone. And you can imagine how many things happen through emails and texts and
Oh,
all
absolutely.
of that
Yes.
that people get offended by,
Yeah.
and it's not the intention. And so that's something that we've got to manage in this generational piece as well.
Tone.
That
Right.
women, we've got to communicate in a way that we know, I want to touch you, I want to love on you. Texting and email doesn't
Yeah, you
give
have
me
to
that.
make time for that personal face-to-face as much as organizing a component of being a good organizer now is social media. It really takes that old school, like grassroots rules, and will always be like word of mouth is still the number one thing for sales. You have to always be mindful. And I tell myself this, I remind myself of that. And I just, I think we're all personally conflicted at times to pick up the phone versus send a text message or send an email, because your tone can be so misconstrued. You
Correct.
can just,
Yeah.
and you just have to say hi. Just hello, are you there? Call
Right.
me.
Yeah,
But-
you have to have that connection with
Mhm.
people.
Definitely.
So listen, let's talk a little bit about, because we're wrapping up. We have about 3 minutes or so, but I want to, what's coming up next for us is the Congressional Black Caucus Foundation has every year an annual legislative conference. And people from around the country come into Washington, D.C., again, the seat of power, to really learn and share what's going on in their community, but most importantly, touch the congressional caucus leaders and find out what they're doing. One of the issues that is front and center, we know among the other things we talked about today, immigration and social justice and our civil rights, is this piece on human trafficking
Correct.
as we talk about black women. And in particular, International Black Women's Public Policy Institute, which is an organization that I co-founded with a woman named Ka Fluellen out of Washington, D.C. It's a 5-year-old organization. Once a year, we host a hearing around a particular issue. For the last 2 years, we have been really trying to raise the awareness about the disproportionate number of black women and girls that are trafficked right here in this country.
Correct.
This isn't an issue that's so far away that we don't have to be
It's in our
concerned about it.
backyards.
This is
In every community.
on the corner.
Yes.
Every community.
Every
Yes.
community across this nation. And so one of the things we're doing, and Congresswoman Karen Bass has been a champion, so has retired member Congresswoman Diane Watson, who actually helped to shepherd our organization. Glenda was one of the founding members of the organization. But we're hosting this hearing where we are building what we're calling the largest women's collaborative. And this coalition of women, it's a temporary organization. We're not trying to build anything new. We're not trying to pull people off their own message. We just want to say, for this time, can we all come together and really raise the awareness around the dangers and the risk that our young girls and boys are in across the country around trafficking. So that's coming up. The Congressional Black Caucus starts Wednesday, September 18th. And it's 4 days of lots of activity around this. The Black Women's Roundtable, I know we'll be doing a lot around health. The issue of childhood obesity is being talked about quite a bit. And so, Melina, are you going to the caucus?
Yes, I do plan on going to caucus and participating in the roundtables, participating fully just in the caucus this year, and any issues that are surrounding black women and incarceration of our young black males is one of my top issues and passion priorities as well, and the Voting Rights Act. Making sure that we don't lose our civil liberties, our civil rights is something that I have my eyes on and participating as well. Congresswoman Barbara Lee is also having a constituents breakfast.
Oh, yeah. I
So
did hear
that,
about that.
and I'll be attending that. and just a host of we'll be roaming.
Okay.
Our crew,
Love it.
our crew
The
will
crew.
be roaming. So all of my sisters that I'm surrounded by magnificent women and sisters such as yourself and my other comrades, we're coming to DC this year with a different vibe and fever.
Okay, so let's close it out. Glenda, closing comments from you?
As women
Yeah,
and as a leader,
yeah.
I would say that we must keep on being strong. We must keep on supporting each other. We must love each other. And when you see a sister that's down, you got to pick her up, give her a kiss, give her a hug, and give her some love and help her on her way.
Yeah.
We have got to, we are our sisters' keepers.
Thank you. Melina?
Yeah, Sisters at the Well, thank you. And all the sisters out there of all ages, I just think it's important that in closing remarks that you do pick a priority, you have a passion priority, and you own it, and you open yourself up to receive the assistance you need and carry out our vision and your vision for the community, I as we, and to thyself be true.
Yeah. Well, I just want to say thank you, ladies. This has been the fastest hour. Sisters at the Well Radio is about really facilitating the dialogue that we are most interested in. How do we do better? We know that when we know better, we do better. We know that we stand on the shoulders of some very strong women who gave a lot for us. And we're not going to let them down. No, not on our watch. We're going to take care of our babies. We're going to meet them where they are. We're going to do the work in our communities. We're going to roll up our sleeves. We're not tired. No way are we tired. I say thank you for listening. See you next Sunday right here at LA Talk Live. Sisters at the Well Radio, a conversation with women about women. Peace.
Thank you.
Peace.
I never knew there was a place to go where my spirit's thirst is quenched. Hold on to yourself, I'm hearing. Hold on to the best of who you are. It wasn't quite the way I had imagined, yet it's more than all my dreams. I'm hearing it's more than what it seems. For here they are gathered. Here they are just like you. Right here it all matters. Everything you do at the well. The time has come for everything at the well. Your life becomes an endless spring